times, he had a plan and he had a purpose. And he wanted to rob us of the strong men first, leaving our women and children vulnerable to his tactics. So what he would do is, all of the men who were strong that were brought over here from Africa, they had to deal with them first. So what he did was, if I can't change the strong man, I have to kill the strong man. And so what they would do is they would tie horses to men, and one horse facing the other way and the other horse facing the other, and they would whip those horses, and the man would be pulled apart in front of his village. And when that man was pulled apart in front of his village, the slave master then went and beat the other men and families of the village, so that they understood what would happen to them if they dared try to be stronger than the system. So that forced our women to try to raise our young men not to be strong, thinking that it would save their lives. Because I'm gonna tell you something, a mother's love is stronger than salvation. A mother's love is stronger than her salvation. Because if you ask a mother to do something, and it's going to jeopardize the life of her child, she chooses the life of her child above all. See, when we say Happy Father's Day, you have to understand that there's a difference between father with the capital F and father with the lowercase f. And it's the way that the enemy has tried to pervert God's order started in Genesis. Let me tell you how it affects us today. There are 3 levels to manhood. God has 3 levels and 3 personalities within himself, and so does a woman. Here are the 3 levels to manhood. When a man is brought into this world, he has to first be a son. And as a son, the mother's job, or the parent's job, is to teach a son love. The next level of that manhood comes when he becomes a husband. That's God's order. See, when you become a husband now, you learn how to utilize the love you learned as a son and project it to someone else other than yourself. The last level of a man's triunity power is to then be a father. You have to go from son to husband to father in that order. Because see, when you don't do it in that order, then the enemy tries to pervert the order, and this is how he does it. He usually takes sons who are learning how to be loved, have them jump over the step of being a husband and move directly to the level of being a father. That is impossible to do, because what you have not done in the middle is learn how to be a husband to love someone else. Therefore, when you get yourself mated to someone without being a husband first, you still believe that love is all about you. And if you believe love is all about you, then when you have children born into that improper union, what happens is the child does not learn the full value of the triunity to which God has placed men here to be. So what does that mean? See, the second level between being a husband and cross-versely being a wife, that is where the covenant takes place. Covenant has to happen at that level. Because see, the last level of being a father involves 2 steps that is impossible to learn before you do the other 2. See, at the last step, as a father, you learn sacrifice. You can't learn that being a son, because everything is about you. If you haven't learned how to be a husband, to learn how to love someone else, and then be a father to know what it means to sacrifice, then you haven't learned the full triunity of your power. And see, here's the thing that happens most. Your children recognize the disorder. And when children recognize the disorder, they have no reason to try to stay in line. Let me give you an example. You hear all the time people are saying, what's wrong with these kids today? You hear a lot of young people saying, well, my father left the home. And if my father was there, then I would have done this, or I would have been different than this. But see, the problem with that statement is, that's an excuse. Because if in fact you understand the purpose of God in your life, and that has to be communicated from an elder, then you understand the importance of what it means to be something or to love someone other than yourself. And you cannot do that without a man teaching you how that happens. See, daughters learn what love is about from their fathers. Sons learn how to love from their mothers.
Amen.
Did y'all get that?
Yeah.
That has to happen. Because love is a centrality to all of this. When you become a father, God gives you the discernment and the ability to be able to look at other children, to look at other young people, other sons and daughters, and recognize when something is wrong. Because you have that ability to see into that particular child. And what we don't have nowadays is enough fathers, not baby daddies, enough fathers looking into the lives of the young people that are around them to be able to recognize that there is something wrong. And how do I, as a father, fulfill that need? See, you don't have to fulfill the need for young people by blood. You have to fulfill the need of young people by God.
Yes.
Amen.
And only God can do that. Because the enemy is trying to get you to walk away. The enemy is trying to get you to be like the Amalekites. Because the enemy wants to rob your house while you are away. See, even in slavery, they did that to you. Because see, when they freed us from the law of slavery, but not from the effects of slavery. So they produced legislative things that continue to separate black men in particular from their families and left women as the vulnerable head of household. It made men go away and made the black families that were left to depend upon the system for survival. And when you depend upon the system for survival, it can continue to manipulate you. It can continue to tell you what you need. It can continue to provide for the things that the black father should be providing for. See, if I can send a father away from his family over here, then it leaves the woman to be the head of household. And so a lot of black women are resentful because they've now had to step up and be out of line with what God created them to be. Spiritually, God created men to be providers and protectors. And when a woman has to step into that role, it is out of order. And if it's out of order, it can never be something peaceful for her to do. Men are supposed to be the providers and the protectors, not just against a natural enemy, but against a spiritual enemy.
Yes, yes, yes.
Y'all hearing me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
As men, we have been mandated by God to stand in between our families and the enemy. And God, since Genesis, has given us the ability to put our feet upon the head of the very person that wants to destroy our homes. But time, legislation, hostile times has separated us from that power. And unfortunately, a lot of men are satisfied with the mediocrity of their existence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, sir.
And it is that mediocrity of existence that is pissing our women off. And our children learn mediocrity from mediocre men.